At number 20, the Antonine Plague. The Antonine Plague of 165 to 180 AD, also known as the Plague of Galen, was an ancient pandemic brought to the Roman Empire by troops returning from campaigns in the Near East. The Greek physician described symptoms common to smallpox and measles, and the loss of lives were incredible. The total deaths have been estimated at 5 million, and the disease killed as much as 1/3 of the Roman population. At number 19, the Plague of Justinian. A pandemic that afflicted the Roman Empire, port cities around the entire Mediterranean Sea, as merchant ships harbored rats that carried fleas infected with plague. In 2013, researchers confirmed the earlier speculation that the cause of the Plague of Justinian was a bacterium known as Yersinia pestis. The Plague of Justinian was one of the deadliest pandemics in history, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 30 to 50 million people during 2 centuries of recurrence, and a total death equivalent to as much as half of Europe's population at that time. At number 18, the Japanese smallpox epidemic. It was a major smallpox epidemic that afflicted much of Japan, and the virus that caused it was variola virus. Over 2 million people died due to this outbreak, and approximately 1/3 of the entire Japanese population. At number 17, the Black Death. Also known as the Great Bubonic Plague, similar to the Plague of Justinian due to the same bacterium Yersinia pestis. The bubonic plague first emerged in China more than 2,600 years ago and arrived in Europe in October 1347. The disease then spread towards Western Europe and then to Africa. The plague killed an estimated 25 million people, almost 1/3 of the continent's population. At number 16, the smallpox of Aztec. Aztec civilization spanned between 1345 to 1520 AD in what is now Mexico. It was brought to Mexico by those in Spanish ships, then spread to the center of Mexico. It was an unknown disease not only in Mexico but in the Americas before the arrival of the Europeans, and it was introduced to Mexican lands by the Spanish and played a significant role in the downfall of the Aztec Empire. The estimated death of the smallpox between 1519 to 1520 AD was about 5 to 8 million people. At number 15, the Great Plague of London. It was the last major epidemic of the bubonic plague to occur in England, and it happened within the centuries-long time period of the second pandemic, an extended period of intermittent bubonic plague epidemics which originated in China in 1331, the first year of the Black Death, an outbreak which included other forms of pneumonic plague and lasted until 1750. It was the third plague caused by Yersinia pestis bacterium, which is usually transmitted through the bite of an infected rat flea. The Great Plague killed about 100,000 people in London. At number 14, the Great Plague of 1738. The Great Plague of 1738 was an outbreak of the bubonic plague between 1738 to 1740 that affected areas in the modern nations of Romania, Hungary, Ukraine, Serbia, Croatia, and Austria. Although no exact figure is available, the epidemic likely killed over 50,000 people. At number 13, the cholera pandemic of 1817 to 1824. The first known pandemic of cholera originated in the Ganges River Delta in India. The disease broke out near Calcutta and spread through the rest of the country, but the death toll from this outbreak is not known, but based on the 10,000 recorded deaths among British troops, researchers estimated that hundreds of thousands across India succumbed to the disease. In 1820, 100,000 people died on the Indonesian island of Java alone. At number 12, the Third Plague Pandemic, 1855. The Third Plague Pandemic was a major bubonic plague pandemic that began in Yunnan, China in 1855 during the 5th year of the Xianfeng Emperor of the Qing dynasty. This episode of bubonic plague spread to all inhabited continents and ultimately led to more than 12 million deaths in India and China, with about 10 million killed in India alone. At number 11, the yellow fever. The virus originated in Africa and was brought to the Western Hemisphere during the slave trade era, with the first epidemic reported in 1648 in the Yucatan. Over the ensuing 200 years, outbreaks occurred widely in tropical America, the North American coastal cities, and Europe. The disease is caused by yellow fever virus and is spread by the bite of an infected female mosquito, and the yellow fever killed more than 100,000 people. At number 10, the 1889 to 1890 flu pandemic. The flu pandemic of 1889 to 1890 was a deadly influenza pandemic, and the outbreak was dubbed Russian flu. Reanalysis of seroarchaeological data has indicated that influenza A subtype H3 is the most likely cause for the 1889 to 1890 pandemic. This pandemic killed about 1 million people worldwide. At number 9, the Spanish flu pandemic 1918 to 1920 AD. The Spanish flu, also known as the 1980 flu pandemic, was an unusually deadly influenza pandemic lasting from January 1918 to December 1920. It infected 500 million people, about a quarter of the world's population at that time. The death toll is estimated to have been anywhere from 17 million to 50 million and possibly as high as 100 million, making it one of the deadliest epidemics in human history. At number 8 is Asian flu. The Asian flu of 1957, also called the Asian flu pandemic of 1957, is an outbreak of influenza that was first identified in February 1957 in East Asia and subsequently spread to countries worldwide. The 1957 Asian flu was the second major influenza pandemic to occur in the 20th century after the Spanish flu and preceded the Hong Kong flu pandemic of the 1968. The Asian flu outbreak caused an estimated 1 million to 2 million deaths worldwide and is generally considered to have been the least severe of the three influenza pandemics of the 20th century. At number 7, the Hong Kong flu of 1968. The Hong Kong flu was a Category 2 flu pandemic whose outbreak in 1968 and 1969 killed an estimated 1 million people all over the world. It was caused by a H3N2 strain of the influenza A virus descended from H2N2 through antigenic shift, a genetic process in which genes from multiple subtypes reassorted to form a new virus. At number 6 is HIV. The origin of the human immunodeficiency virus has been a subject of scientific research and debate since the virus was identified in the 1980s. HIV crossed from chimps to humans in the 1920s, and the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, is a virus that attacks the immune system, specifically the CD4 cells or T cells. According to WHO, 75 million people have been infected with the HIV virus, and about 32 million people have died. At number 5 is SARS coronavirus. Severe acute respiratory syndrome virus was identified in 2003. The SARS pandemic was eventually brought under control in 2003, and during the period of infection, there were 8,098 reported cases of SARS and 774 deaths. At number 4, the swine flu of 2009. It was an influenza pandemic that lasted from January 2009 to August 2010 and the second of the two pandemics involving H1N1 influenza virus. About 150,000 to 575,000 fatalities were recorded. At number 3, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome 2012. It was a new killer respiratory disease caused by MERS coronavirus, first reported from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in September 2012. The total number of laboratory-confirmed MERS-CoV infected cases reportedly globally to WHO is 2,519 with 866 associated deaths. At number 2, the Ebola virus 2014 to 2016. Ebola virus causes an acute serious illness which is often fatal if untreated. Ebola virus disease is caused by infection with Ebola virus, and about 11,315 people have been reported as having died from the disease in 6 countries: Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, the US, and Mali. At number 1 is coronavirus disease 2020. It is an infectious disease caused by a newly discovered coronavirus, and most people infected with the COVID-19 virus will experience mild to moderate respiratory illness and recover without requiring special treatment. Older people and those with underlying medical problems like cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, chronic respiratory disease, and cancer are more likely to develop serious illness. As of today, 13,671 deaths have been reported. Best way to prevent and slow down transmission is to be well informed about the COVID-19 virus, the disease it causes, and how it spreads. Protect yourself and others from infection by washing your hands or using an alcohol-based rub frequently and by not touching your face.